Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, August 2nd. It's kind of a late-ish kind of week. There's only about 300 titles coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 300 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 12 on the show, though, today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. The first album I got on my list this week is the new album from X. This is Smoke and Fiction. It's their 9th and final studio album. It's going to run you about $27 online. Of course, X is a highly influential punk band formed in the late part of the 70s. I think their debut album, Los Angeles, I think it was 1980 when Los Angeles came out. It's a great album. They've kind of been on this strange path throughout their career. They went a long time without releasing music. Their last album, which was Alphabet Land, came out, and I think it was 2022 when that album came out. And at that time, it had been, I think, 27 years since they'd released an album. And with Alphabet Land, that was the band's first album in 35 years with the full original lineup. So it's definitely what I'm looking forward to grabbing this week, at least checking it out. I know it was earlier part of this year, John Doe went on social media, announced that X was going to release one final album. They're also going to go on a final tour. The tour just started, I think it was the beginning part of July. I think it ends later part of this year. I might try to grab one of those final shows also to kind of check the band out. But, I love Los Angeles. I haven't listened to Alphabet Land, though, so I'll probably stream that and the new album this weekend. And then you get the new album from Orville, Peck, Stampede coming out. It's his third studio album. There's a few different variants going to be available in this album. You got an Amazon exclusive, which is on bone vinyl. There's an indie exclusive, which is on pink vinyl. There's also a black vinyl version of it. I think there's another variant if you go on his website. It's going to run you about $40 online. Orville Peck is not your typical kind of country music, but this is a really interesting album. I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. I think Bronco, which was his second album, I think it was the only album of his I've ever listened to. That was the album that kind of broke him out into the mainstream. A bunch of great people on here. So you got 15 tracks on here. You got Willie Nelson, Elton John, Beck, Noah Cyrus, Nathaniel Rateliff is on here also. A bunch of other great ones. So it's an all duets album. It's kind of a cool, interesting concept. I'll definitely stream it and check it out this week. The next release is one that I thought was supposed to come out last week, but it looks like it's coming out this week. This is Cinderella, Still Climbing, released back in 1994. It was their fourth and final studio album. So this is a music on vinyl release. It's going to be on black vinyl. It's going to run you about $33 online. This is the first time this album has ever been reissued since it was first released back in 1994, which is really surprising that it's never been reissued. And it's kind of odd that the way music on vinyl is doing this release. Typically when music on vinyl does, their first release, it's normally on colored vinyl. It's normally pretty limited release. But this is going to be on black vinyl. It doesn't look like it's super limited either. So it should be kind of an easy one to grab this week, hopefully. I will say that the big track off here is Hot and Bothered. If you don't know that track, it was in the Wayne's World soundtrack way back in the day, if you're old enough to know what Wayne's World is. But, I'll go back through and stream that one. I haven't listened to that album in a really long time. I'm only really familiar with the first couple of Cinderella albums. So I'll add that one to my list to stream and check out this week. And then you get the reissue of In the Lonely Hour by Sam Smith getting reissued this week. This came out back in 2014. It was his debut studio album. 10th anniversary release. This has got updated artwork. It's got ready about $30 online. That's a gigantic album when it's released. I think this will go on to sell, 12 or 14 million copies. I know it hit number 2 on the Billboard 200. I had never listened to this album until he released Gloria. I think it was last year when Gloria came out. And ever since then, I've been kind of slowly digging through his for at least his first couple of albums. I was really impressed with this one. I'm not going to pick this one up this week, but if you're unfamiliar with his music, I think it's a good album to kind of start with. There's a couple of great looking jazz releases coming out this week. Both of them are part of the Tone Poet series from Blue Note, which I've discovered so many great albums through that series and the classic series over the last couple of years. These are always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. They're pressed to RTI. come in deluxe gatefold jackets, so they always look great. They sound great also. I wasn't familiar with either one of these albums. The first one I streamed over the last couple of days, though. The first one was Lee Morgan Taru. It's going to run you about $39 online. Definitely a little bit more of an experimental kind of album that I've heard from Lee Morgan before. There's a great lineup on here, though. He's got George Benson on here, Benny Maupin, John Hicks, Reggie Workman, Billy Higgins. Great lineup. I think the really big standout on this album for me, though, is George Benson's guitar work. Absolutely fantastic. I think some of the best guitar work from a jazz album from the later part of the 60s. Definitely worth checking out. Like I said, these are this is an interesting release, though, because both of these releases actually were recorded in 1968. But neither one were released until 1980 through the LT series. I'm not sure what the story is, why there's such a big gap between the recording and the release of it. But it's great to finally see these albums getting reissued out there. And then the second one is Bobby Hutcherson, Medina. Same thing. It's going to run you about $39 online. All mastered by Kevin Gray. But same thing. It's recorded in 68, not released until 1980. So as far as Bobby's stuff, I don't think I've ever heard any of his stuff as a band leader. He's always part of an ensemble. He does a great job. He's got a great lineup on this album also. He's got Harold Lane on here. He's got Stanley Cowell. He's got Reggie Johnson and Joe Chambers on here. So great lineup. But like I said, I'm just not familiar with his stuff. It's definitely one I'll stream and check out this week. The next album is a Record Store Day 2022 release that's getting reissued this week. This is Goldfinger, Hello Destiny, released back in 2008. It was their sixth studio album. It's going to be on purple blast vinyl. It's going to run about $24 online. So when this album was released for Record Store Day, it was the first time it had ever been available on vinyl, which I was kind of surprised with when it came out. I mean, it was met with a lot of really mixed reviews. I should add that when it came out in 2008. And, I think it's not, anywhere close to being the best Goldfinger album. I thought it was a really enjoyable album, though, and I hadn't heard it before I picked it up for Record Store Day. And because I think some of those reviews kind of put me off when it first came out. I've listened to it a couple of times since then. I think there's some really good tracks on here. If you're not a big Goldfinger fan, you might not like it, but at least I think it's worth checking out this week if you want to stream something new that you haven't heard before. So you got that one coming out, and then you have got Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory getting reissued. So this is like the fifth or sixth time this album has been released or reissued over the last 4 or 5 years. But this album came out in 2000. It was their debut studio album. It's going to be on translucent yellow vinyl. So this is going to run you, if you go on Amazon, it's going to be like $43 on Amazon. This was originally announced as a Best Buy exclusive, and it's cheaper on Best Buy's website if you want to grab a copy of it. I don't know. Like I said, it was released, it's supposed to be a Best Buy release, and now I've seen it on Amazon. I've seen it at a couple other websites also, so I'm not sure what the story is, why it's no longer a Best Buy exclusive release. I think it's probably at least one of the best debut albums of the 2000s. It was a huge album when it came out. I mean, how many copies does this thing sell? Sold over 30 million copies, hit number 2 on the Billboard 200. It's one of my favorite albums of the last, 20, 25 years. There's a couple of reissues from Quiet Riot coming out this week. The first one is Mental Health, released back in 1983. It was their third studio album. It's going to about $24 online. So this is the band's first album since the death of founding guitarist Randy Rhoads, who, he left the band in 79 to join Ozzy, but he was such a huge integral part of that band over its first several years and first couple of albums. And this is a really important album also, because this was the first heavy metal album to ever hit number 1 on the Billboard 200 here in the US. It would sell over 6 million copies. I'm not the biggest Quiet Riot fan, but this is definitely a really good album. I guess I should say this. I'm not the biggest fan, but I've not listened to a lot of their other albums also. I think I've listened to their debut. I've listened to this one, maybe one other album also. So if you are a big Quiet Riot fan, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what other Quiet Riot albums I should check out. Because like I said, I do love some of the stuff on this album. Of course, the title track and Come On Feel the Noise were the big hits off this album that really made it really popular. So you got that one getting reissued, and then you got a reissue Alive and Well coming out this week also. Released back in 1999, it was their 9th studio album. It's going to run about $30 online. This is a 2 LP release. It's going to be on black vinyl. So this is a reissue of the 2022 deluxe version. So this is kind of an interesting album because it had some new material on here. I think when this was released, there was 8 tracks on here that were new tracks. And then the rest of it was all re-recorded song versions or... And then the rest of it was all re-recorded versions of some of their most popular songs. But this deluxe version that's getting reissued does have 4 additional demos on here. I haven't listened to everything on here. I know I've listened. There's a cover of Highway to Hell on here, which I think is a really good version. It's not as good as the original, but it is a really good version nonetheless. But I've listened to that one, a couple other tracks on here, but this is definitely one I've got to go back through this week. The next album is one that was released 30 years ago, but it's probably within the last 2 or 3 years that I finally got around to checking this one out. This is Ween, Chocolate and Cheese, released back in 1994. It was their fourth studio album. This is a 3 LP deluxe edition. It's going to run you about $67 online. Probably the best known album. At least it's the only album of theirs I've ever listened to. You know, it's kind of interesting to kind of go through this one. It's like alternative rock with like some pop mixed in there, like a little bit of funk, maybe a little soul also. Like I said, really interesting release. This is one that, this includes a bunch of extra material also. This has got 15 additional demo tracks on here. You know, it's not a great album, especially for $67. All these should be available on streaming services, so probably good just streaming and listening to those. But you got that one coming out this week. And then the last one on my list is Hall & Oates, A Band of Luncheonette. Came out back in 73. This is their second studio album. This is a Friday music release. It's going to be on translucent gold vinyl. So this is being released for the 50th anniversary. Even though the 50th anniversary was last year, it's going to run you about $38 online. This is a really big album for Hall & Oates because it was the album that really pushed them out into the mainstream. She's Gone was the big track off of this one. And they took that like folk soul kind of sound from their first album, kind of incorporated a little pop into it, and that's kind of, I think, what helped get them some mainstream success with this one. It hit number 33 on the Billboard LP, top LP and tape chart. You know, it's been 15 years at least since I've listened to this album, so I'll try to check it out again this week. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Like I said, a little bit kind of a lighter week. There's no like heavy hitters this week, but I think there is some good releases coming out. I'll definitely check out the new X album and the new Orville Peck album. You know, I might grab that Lee Morgan. I might grab Mental Health. There's a couple other question marks that I've got out there, but let me know what you guys are looking forward to grabbing this week. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.